The average temperature on the island was in the high 70s or low 80s. The humidity was very low. It was a beautiful environment. The water temperature was in the high 70s, low 80s, so diving was fantastic. You didn't have to wear a dive suit or anything. And it was a pristine environment for finding all kinds of marine life. And if you like the ocean, the first thing you wanted to do was go out there and scuba dive and pick up shells and fish and just surf, just have a good time. But if you didn't like the ocean, there wasn't much to do once you visited the villages around there. And they did have what they pride themselves as the largest McDonald's in the world on the island. I don't know why they said they had the largest, but they did have 50 windows where you could go up and order a McDonald's hamburger. The McDonald's hamburger was made with Australian beef. It tastes a little different, but it was one of the few places on the island where you can go and get a hamburger. Didn't have a lot of bars, didn't have any nightclubs that I ever located. Once you visited and became friends with the locals, you could go out with them and fish and just have a good time. Now, there was a small island which was probably a half a mile and off the coast of Guam, and it was another very small island, and it was a nice place to go visit. 25 to 30 miles north of Guam was an island called Rota. Now, the islands in Micronesia were made when the volcanoes erupted and came up through the ocean and created, and then cooled down and created an island, and eventually with the birds and so forth, it became a jungle because of the rainfall and so forth, and the soil. So it was, in my estimate, a paradise. Now, if you've been to Hawaii and you've been to some of their beautiful sand beaches and everything, the big difference between Hawaii was jammed with tourists, and the traffic is horrendous. They do have a lot of multiple hotels and things. It's expensive, and all of their products and food are all brought in, so there's taxation problems. But you get over to Guam, and a lot of their stuff is grown locally, and there's really only one beach. It's called Tumon Bay, and that is where the rainwater that washes down off the mountain from the middle of the island goes down, washes down, and decays the coral. And when the coral is decayed, it turns into allowing the sand and the coral to come up and create a beautiful white beach. Well, Tumon Bay, the Japanese, after World War II, came down and built a beautiful hotel there. And they would take their workers from Japan 200 of them at a time, fly them to Guam, and then they would go to the hotel as a reward from the company from Japan, and they would be on that beautiful little beach. It was a nice place to meet the Japanese that came there. They were very sociable. A lot of them could speak some English and stuff, so you could converse with them. But they tended to stay only with the hotel and the beach area. So back to the air base. As I said before, if you didn't like the ocean, you didn't really like being there. And after you've been transferred there, you were supposed to be there for 1 year. And you had specialized rates that you brought in, so they specialized in different equipment and different things, like they specialized in the propellers and stuff on the P3s. They specialized in the engines. They specialized in electronic gear, in the navigation gear. And it was our job at AIMD, Aircraft Intermediate Maintenance Service, to repair those things with the 100 people that I had. After a short time there, some of the women who didn't like to go into the ocean and were afraid of it and everything, they became bored and they wanted to get off the island as soon as they could. And in one case in particular, they had a young lady who came in and demanded that she be sent home. And one of my chiefs talked to her, and he said, there's only 5 ways off the island. And he happened to mention that there was a go UA or serve your year or get an honorable discharge hardship or something. And he happened to mention she could get pregnant. She said, can I leave the island if I get pregnant? He says, yes, if we get a replacement for you. Well, she went away upset, and about a month and a half or so later, she came running down the hall of my office and said, the rabbit died, I want to leave tomorrow. So I had to have a discussion with her, and I said, you can't leave until your replacement comes in. She says, well, how soon will that be? And I said, I don't know. You went through almost a year of training before you got here, and we have that other person in the pipeline getting training. When they finish it, then they could come out and relieve you. So it might be anywhere from 3 to 5 months. And she said, well, I can't get an abortion and I can't wait. And I said, well, there's not really much I can do until we get a replacement for you, because you're a specialist. Well, she went back, and 2 days later, she took a coat hanger and she gave herself an abortion. And yes, she left the island a couple days later to go back to the nut house. So that was the negative part of the island. The positive part was joining a dive club. When you joined the dive club, you became a member of the Pacific Dive Corporation, and you had to go through a minimum of 2 to 3 weeks of training, dependent how many dives you could make and how much classroom you put in and so forth. And after you finished all your training and you understand the limitations on diving, the limitations on air and depth, and know how to read the dive tables, and you have the proper dive equipment, And you can rent all of that stuff, but usually when somebody was leaving the island, they would sell you their equipment and so forth. You needed a depth gauge, watch, and so forth, because you had to constantly keep time of your depth and the time underwater so you didn't kill yourself. I went through the training there and loved it. I was always worried about my ear, and everybody worries about the pressure. Oh, I can't dive more than about 10 feet. With my ears are killing me. But what they don't understand about scuba diving is the minute you put the regulator in your mouth and you're breathing oxygen and you squeeze your nose and you pop your ear one time, from that point on, yes, when you go deeper and deeper, you might have to pop your ear again a little bit. But it's a wonderful thing to be able to swim with the fish down there. And you can go down anywhere from 90 to 100 feet, and then the coral loses its color and it becomes all a kind of a gray environment. But that first 100 feet, all the fish are beautiful to see because sunlight penetrates and they're all in their natural colors. And there's so much under the water there, and the coral is beautiful colors, and all the life that's under there. Yes, some of it can hurt you, but of all of the dives I made, there was only one time that I was worried about being injured or hurt. So you had first to learn how to get across the coral and get into the ocean, because yes, you could go down to Tumon Bay, you could go out on the sandy beach, and you can go on out on what they call the Mariana Shelf. Mariana Shelf is a depth of about 70 feet. And once you get on the shelf, you go out about a mile, and it drops off straight down like a cliff, 5,000 feet straight down. To get your open water ocean certification, you had to go through the class, and on graduation, you had to go out in the ocean, and you had to find a Japanese Zero aircraft that was down at 90 feet. And they warned you that there was a fish with fins in the back of the seat, behind the seat in the Zero, and there would either be a mannequin in an orange flight suit with a Japanese helmet on, sitting in the cockpit, or it would be on the wing. And this mannequin was filled with concrete, and it would take a group of people to lift him out of the seat and put him on the wing. But if he was on the wing, it would take a group of people to lift him off the wing and put him back in a seat. But beware, behind that seat lived the scorpion fish. And that's the fish that has a fin. It looks beautiful, but on the edge of the fin it has poison, and it's not a pleasant poison. So you had to learn these things. When you go diving, you had to get over coral. So it wasn't wise to try to dive and go over coral with bare feet. You always dive with your tennis shoes on or with special rubber boots on. You always dive with nice heavy gloves. And you have to understand your weight belt and how to make yourself buoyant.